Rain falls in sheets over the city, pattering against the fogged windows of the subway car. The sound is muffled, almost hypnotic, contrasting with the oppressive silence of a grey morning. Fluorescent lights flicker intermittently, casting shadows that writhe across the sticky floor. The air carries a scent of damp metal, mixed with the sour tang of spilled coffee lingering in some corner. The apathetic crowd squeezes into their wet coats, eyes glued to phones or lost in the void. Something feels wrong, an inexplicable stillness, as if time itself were holding its breath. Every step you take is seen by eyes you'll never meet. The air hums with secrets, daring you to listen. Stick around, subscribe for the journey, and in today's story, Julia, 32, is an accountant drowned in monotony. Her tired eyes scan her phone screen, but her mind drifts, lost in fragmented thoughts. She clutches her bag to her chest, a reflex of someone raised in a metropolis, always vigilant. Today, though, an unease gnaws at her, one she can't name. Perhaps it's the train's 10-minute delay, or the weight of a day that already feels doomed to exhaust her. Julia sighs, brushing back the brown hair falling over her eyes, trying to ignore the sensation that she's being watched. An elderly man in a tattered coat, with deep-set eyes that seem to carry decades of secrets, sits beside her. He says nothing, but his gaze pierces through her, as if seeing something beyond. The train jerks to a halt, jostling passengers. As the lights flicker, he leaves a silver pocket watch on the seat, wordless. Julia hesitates, her heart racing. "Sir, your watch," she murmurs, but the car is empty where he stood. The watch's metal is cold against her palm, sending a shiver up her spine. A deep voice echoes, perhaps in her mind, perhaps in the air. "Time warns, but do you listen? Not every gift is a blessing. Some are burdens. And Julia, she just received hers." That night, in the quiet of her modest apartment, Julia examines the watch under the dim glow of a lamp. The face is antique, with faded Roman numerals, and the hands are frozen at 2:47. She turns the crown, but the mechanism doesn't budge. A chill envelops her when suddenly a low, insistent ticking begins, as if the watch had a life of its own. At that moment, an image flashes in her mind. A bustling street, a muffled scream, the sound of shattering glass. She blinks, shaking, off the vision, and tries to laugh at herself. "It's just exhaustion," she mutters, but her voice sounds frail in the silence. Julia tries to move on. She tosses the watch into a drawer, determined to forget the incident. Yet doubt settles like a shadow. The next morning, while having coffee, she drops a mug, and the sound of breaking porcelain echoes exactly like the glass from her vision. At work, numbers on her computer screen seem to converge on 2:47 no matter what she types. Her colleagues don't notice, but Julia feels the weight of unseen eyes. She laughs nervously, trying to convince herself it's paranoia, but her hands tremble as she grips her pen. During lunch, Julia crosses a busy avenue. A car speeds by too close, brakes screeching, freezing her in place. The scare sends her heart racing, and she checks her phone. 2:46. The watch, which she swears she left at home, is in the bottom of her bag, ticking softly, like a reminder. A passerby, a man in a hat she can't quite make out, stares at her for a moment before vanishing into the crowd. Julia feels a knot in her stomach, as if something is aligning around her. Back at work, Julia starts noticing patterns. The radio in the break room plays a song about lost time, and the office wall clock seems slower than usual. She tries talking to a colleague, Marina, but hesitates to mention the watch. Marina, distracted, mentions weird accidents in the city, stories she heard on the news. "Ever feel like something's just off?" Julia asks tentatively. Marina laughs, but her glance is evasive. "You're stressed, Ju. Chill. Coincidences are just loose thread. until you pull and see what they hide. Julia's starting to pull. Unable to ignore the watch, Julia decides to investigate. She visits an old jewelry shop downtown, where an elderly watchmaker examines the object with a puzzled look. This model, it's rare, looks like one from a line discontinued nearly a century ago, he says, frowning. Who gave you this? When Julia explains, he hands the watch back quickly, as if it burned. At home, she searches online and finds an urban legend about an eccentric watchmaker who trapped time in his creations, supposedly to warn their owners of danger. With every line, her unease deepens. The watch's ticking now seems to echo everywhere. In her building's elevator, the lights flicker, and Julia swears she sees a silhouette in the corner, but when she looks, she's alone. At work, a colleague casually mentions an accident on the main avenue, always around 3 in the afternoon. Julia's stomach churns. She examines the watch again and discovers a tiny inscription on the back. Cave Felis, beware in Latin. The find leaves her cold. That night, in a dream, the subway man reappears, standing on a rain-soaked street, pointing at the watch. You'll know when the hour comes, he whispers, before dissolving into the dark. Julia starts noticing other coincidences. A stranger leaves a newspaper at the cafe with a headline about inexplicable accidents. On the subway, a radio ad mentions the time that guides us. She finds a note in her coat pocket, written in unfamiliar handwriting. 2:47, don't ignore. Paranoia creeps in, and she begins questioning her sanity. Is the watch cursed, or is someone playing with her? Tired of running, Julia resolves to face the mystery. She plans to throw the watch away, but as she opens the trash can, an unseen force makes her hesitate, the ticking pulses in her veins. I won't let this control me, she says aloud, but tucks the watch back into her pocket. That afternoon, she sees the subway man across the avenue, standing still under the rain. When she blinks, he's gone. The tension is unbearable. Julia knows she's racing towards something she doesn't understand. Time is a patient hunter. Ignoring it only tightens the noose Julia's running, but to where? It's Friday, and Julia walks down the main avenue, the watch in her pocket. The ticking is deafening, synced with her steps, like a mechanical heartbeat. She checks her phone. 2:45. The street is chaotic, with cars honking and pedestrians shoving under dark clouds, promising a storm. The dream's vision hits hard, shattering glass, screams, an impact that shakes the ground. Julia stops mid-sidewalk, heart pounding, as the crowd swallows her. She feels the watch's weight, as if it's anchoring her to this moment. At 2:46, the air feels heavier. Julia spots a child running toward the street, chasing a ball. A truck rounds the corner, far too fast, tires screeching on wet asphalt. The watch vibrates in her pocket, the ticking speeding up. She scans the crowd, searching for the subway man, but sees only indifferent faces. The vision intensifies. She sees the truck crashing, but now realizes the child is at the center of the scene. At 2:47, the watch stops. The silence is deafening. Without thinking, Julia sprints and yanks the child back to the sidewalk, falling with them to the ground. A crash echoes. The truck slams into a pole, glass shards flying like deadly confetti. The crowd screams, but Julia and the child are safe. The watch, now silent, feels like it's burning in her hand. Gasping for breath, Julia realizes the accident wasn't meant for her, but for the child. The watch didn't save her directly. It guided her to that exact moment, that exact place. But how? Who knew she'd be there, and why the child? She looks at the child's mother, who rushes to them, and notices something odd. The woman wears a pendant with the same symbol etched on the watch, a circle with a line crossed through it. Time stopped, but destiny ran its course. Someone, somewhere, always knew it would be so. But who? Still trembling, Julia hands the watch to the child's mother, who thanks her through tears. "You saved my daughter," she says, holding the watch as if she's seen it before. The ticking resumes, but now it's light, almost comforting, as if the watch has fulfilled its purpose. Julia returns home, body exhausted, mind in turmoil. She avoids the avenue for weeks, but the sound of the ticking lingers in her memory, a reminder that something greater touched her. Sitting in her apartment, Julia gazes out the window, rain falling in curtains. She reflects on the subway man, the watch, the child. Part of her wants to believe it was all coincidence, but another feels the weight of a secret she can't unravel. The world feels different now, full of shadows and whispers she never noticed before. She grabs a notebook and writes, "What I did changed something, but changed for whom?" The question remains unanswered. In the following days, Julia tries to find the subway man. She returns to the car where it all began, but there's no trace of him. A homeless man in the corner of the subway car stares at her and mutters, "Time doesn't forget who it chooses." Startled, she runs out. At home, she researches the watch's symbol and discovers it appears in ancient texts linked to a society that believed in guides of fate. The idea both fascinates and terrifies her. Is she part of something bigger? Some warnings arrive uninvited. Others are only seen when the clock stops. But who decides when time speaks? Julia stores the watch in a wooden box, determined to move on. But as she closes the drawer, she hears one last tick, slow and deliberate. On the table, a note she doesn't recall writing. "You've been warned. Now what?" Who's behind? These warnings, and what do they want with her? This is Tales of the Watcher, where shadows tell what eyes can't see. Until the next warning.